that we don't have a quorum here in the meeting room. Mayor, we
Yeah,
don't have a, did you hear me?
I'm hearing you.
You heard that we don't have a quorum. Well, you can see that.
You and Commissioner Bourne,
Yes, sir.
are we expecting anybody else to be present?
I'm looking for Mr.
We've not been advised by anybody that they were not attending. So, yeah, can you make a couple phone calls and see if Commissioner Jones or Commissioner Campbell can come, or Commissioner Rawls? This is CRA, right? So any of those would be available.
Me too.
I don't either. So, Mayor, do you have Commissioner Rawls' phone number that you might be able to call him? I don't have it.
Yeah, I can call him. May. Yeah, Commissioner Rawls is gonna log in.
Did you say he's going to log in, Mayor?
Yes, sir. I just spoke to him.
Of course, we have to have 3 present.
We gotta,
Actually, we have to have 4 present, or our total membership is 7.
Yeah, we gotta have 4 present.
We got to have 4
Yeah.
present.
we got 1 vacancy. You got 6 members, so you gotta have 4. Still gotta have 4.
The city attorney has just walked in, so I'll defer to her now regarding quorum requirements.
It's still gonna be 4. It's gonna be 4 regardless.
Do you get any response? Okay, thank you. Madam City Attorney, we are talking about quorum requirements since we're not operating under the relaxed rules of the COVID emergency declaration. We have to have a quorum of people present, and everyone else can appear electronically. So that's what we're waiting for right now. Do you agree?
Yes, I agree.
For those of you who are here in attendance during the COVID declaration of emergency, the governor suspended the rule which required you to have a quorum of people present in person. Everyone could attend electronically and it would count. But when that last emergency declaration expired, then that rule expired. We have Commissioner Campbell walking in now, so we need 1 more. Sunny, Lauren, did you try Commissioner Jones? No response.
I left a message.
Okay. Let me text him and just see. We would have enough for the regular commission meeting budget workshop with the 3 of you present and the mayor on the phone. we'll be okay for the city commission budget workshop, but without one more, we're,
So it's possible for us to, I mean, we are in the process of probably tabling this and rescheduling.
well, I've got to text into Commissioner Jones to see if he's able to make it. So he would be our fourth.
So Commissioner Ross can't make it at all.
I was understand, if I understood the mayor correctly, Commissioner Rawls was going to zoom in, if I understood the mayor correctly.
Right, but I wonder if there's any way that he can make it if we're not able to touch base with Commissioner Jones, that is there some kind of physical restriction where he couldn't be here or something? And yeah, we're having some difficulties with.
Mayor, did, in your
It was-
conversation,
It sounded like he was at work. Can someone please send Commissioner Rawls email him the login for the meeting?
sure, we can. But we
I'm
can't
getting-
really go forward without him.
A quorum on the dais in the meeting room.
I mean, I can,
I've texted him.
You did.
I've not got a response back.
I called and left a message as well.
I don't think. what's-
can we,
Saying we have a vacancy.
can we just, let's go, let's take a.
I'm here.
Before we get started, let's give like 2 minutes. Let's take a 2-minute break. And Mr. Holmes, you can share. Let's go mute. And Mr. Holmes, you can share the information I just shared with you.
I can share with the commission what you just shared to me.
We'll go 2 minutes. We'll take a 2-minute break and then let me know when
Okay.
you're.
You've been possibly.
Can anybody hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I just want to make sure I didn't get dropped off.
Well, so much for sick leave. No, I'm good. All right, sorry about that. Let's go ahead and get started. We're gonna call this meeting to order. This is our July 21st, 2022 commission meeting. At this time, we're gonna have our invocation and pledge. Mr. Bourne.
Mr. Mulberry may be on the road.
I'm sorry. Chaplain Mulberry, lead us in the invocation.
Yes, sir. Father, we thank you once again for this day. We give you praise and glory for your goodness. We ask God for your divine visitation and presence to be upon us. We ask for the wisdom and guidance in whatever we undergird to do for your glory. We pray, God, that you would touch each and every person, even in this season, God, where we're beginning to vote and make choices and decisions. You know, God, the persons that you will have to serve for such a time as this. We pray, God, that you will bless even now. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Pledge
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we're gonna go ahead and roll call, please.
Thank you. Mayor Terrell Hill,
Here.
Commissioner Tammy McCaskill,
Here.
Commissioner Rufus Borum,
Present.
Commissioner Justin Campbell,
Present.
Commissioner Will Jones, not
That's-
present for the
It's not, he's
record.
absent. That the record reflects he's not present.
Thank you. Commissioner Jeff Rawls.
Present.
Thank you. We have a quorum, sir.
Thank you.
Let your record reflect, Sonny, that it's 4 in person. So you have a quorum in person and 1 commissioner attending electronically.
All right. Also, we're moving on to item number 2, which are public comments. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes. No action will be taken on topics of discussion. Is there anyone here for public comment? If you're here, please fill out the yellow speakers card in the back of the room and bring it forward at this time. Now open the floor for public comment. Seeing no one here for public comment, we'll go ahead and close public comment. We'll now move on. Just before we move on, let me go ahead and just get the pink elephant out of the room. It's probably real big right now. I'm recovering from COVID and I just got cleared today. So my voice is gonna be weak. My wind is gonna be shorter. And we're gonna move forward though. Duty calls, we do what we have to do to make this stuff work. The notice for today says you're hereby notified that a budget workshop of the Community Redevelopment Agency has been rescheduled for June 23rd, 2022. That's not the right thing. That's not it.
It is, sir. It says
Second page.
a second budget workshop will be
Oh,
held.
I'm sorry. From June 2022 to June 23rd, 2022 at 1:30 p.m., July 15th, 2022 at 9 a.m. A second budget workshop will be held on July 21st, 2022 at 3 p.m. The meetings will be held at City Hall located 201 North Second Street. Moving forward into our agenda items, presentation and discussion of the overall budget for 2021, 2022. Ms. Shank.
Thank you, Mayor. I took all of the comments and suggestions of the CRA board, and I did put all the notes into the budget items as well as rebalance the fund. So what you have before you is a balanced tax increment fund, or CRA as we also call it. It is $1,781,841. And as you can see, I didn't make any changes to the millage because at this time that's tentative. So with the county at a flat millage and then the city keeping the 6.4 as well. Those are your anticipated revenues. And then your cash balance forward, since we were able to get the audit numbers in and then also estimate what we'll be spending in fiscal year 22. We are carrying forward $1,080,421. So the first fund that we'll go over is downtown. And as you can see, I made a few adjustments. So we put $10,000 in professional services as that project was completed. And then we updated to 2 festivals and 1 cost share for your festival line. And then we updated the recruitment grant to reflect the 2 remaining recruitment projects that we have in fiscal year 22 that we will carry forward into next year. And then the electronic gateway sign, 60,000 is allotted. And then public art was the other change in your operating fund, or sorry, in your operating expenses. And I just line item that to reflect the carry forward projects and then the touch-ups.
That's for the mill.
Yes, ma'am. Moving into transfers. Originally, we had just 1 firework event. At the request of the board, we changed it to 2 firework events for a total of 20,000. And the other change is to the streetscape project, which is anticipated to be about $500,000 for a contribution from TIF. So for a total of the downtown department, you have $960,180. And in the reserves, that leaves a balance of $339,468. So still a very healthy reserve in case we incur any additional costs for capital projects or any of the sidewalk repairs or anything else in the operating that may go over. Do you have any questions about downtown?
Any questions as it relates to central business?
No, I don't have anything.
Any questions for those in Zoom? Commissioner Ross?
No, I'm good. The
Okay.
same thing, what went over the other day.
No questions.
All right, moving on to South Historic District. Audit expenses were changed. I'm sorry, I didn't mention that. Audit expenses were changed to reflect the different cost share that's in the entire fund. Originally, I just budgeted 1/3 in each area, which I was informed that we kind of split that cost differently based on the amount of funds that come into the districts. So that was updated and it actually decreased the audit expense in the South and North districts. Building improvement grant, we kept that at 50,000. And then capital outlay at the request of the board, we line itemed 15,000 for sidewalks and 35,000 for other capital outlay. So that was also updated as well. And those were the only changes we had in the South District. For the South District, there's a total operating and capital budget of $214,030. And that leaves $85,164 in reserves. Any questions?
The 3,000 for festivals, that is the Porch Fest, correct?
I'm sorry, for
Festivals.
festivals. Well, the maximum, I believe, is 2,500 that you can do on cost
Fest.
share. But when we discussed it in the last budget workshop, we said to just leave it at the 3,000. Because it's a cost share program, we didn't want to not have someone else apply if they had a small festival or event that they wanted to use. So the consensus was to leave it at the 3,000.
I think the question was that for the Porch Fest only, but it's just in general, right? It's just 3,000 for whichever festival.
Correct.
We haven't had any other festivals. We only had the Porch Fest, and there was no other submitted.
That's correct. And it was a little over $2,400 this year. But it is a cost share program, so they still have to go through the application process each year.
Right.
Okay.
So it's an anticipation of Porch Fest as the marquee event, but it's not earmarked.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Moving on to the North Historic District. This one, you also see the decrease in the audit expense. And the general capital improvements, we bumped it up to the 50,000. And so for a total of the North District, we have 487,800 and, oh no, I'm sorry, that's the reserve. We have $119,800, and that leaves $63,199 in reserves.
Okay, I think I'm off.
Page
Oh,
4.
990. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I know I was reading the bottom. So the North Historic Department total is the 119,800. And then you'll see in the reserve line, they have $63,199 left. And that gives us a balanced fund for the TIF fund.
So any questions on North?
I have none.
Any questions from the guys?
No.
And yeah, if you have a question, Ms. Sweatler, as the representative for North, just come up. Since you weren't here last time, you can come up and ask your question. But
Annie Sweatlick, 511 North 3rd Street in Palatka. I have a question about the general capital improvements. That's a huge difference, 30,000. What is that for?
So the board discussed at the last meeting doing sidewalks and road repairs and line iteming those specific things for each district,
Okay, so sidewalk repair?
as well as road repairs.
well, there hasn't been much guidance as it relates to what's wanted from the North Historic, well, from the Northern TIF district, not the North Historic district. And so there was money allocated for sidewalks, for sidewalk repair throughout at the last meeting with no one here and no additional information. What we wanted to do is make sure that we allocated funding so that there will be capital improvements and visual aesthetics within the districts, and sidewalks was one of the much needed ways in which to look at that. And so that's why we increased so that there will be some upgrades planned for the coming year. If there are any other projects, there's an opportunity to bring those forward throughout the year. And if it's deemed viable, by the agency, then it can be placed into the SKU if necessary.
Okay, thank you. And then there is like a balance of 63,199.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that a balance that, did you say that's for the TIF HIP program?
No,
Okay,
it's just in the reserves.
it's in reserves. And is such a balance carried over if nothing happens with it to the?
Yes, ma'am. They are specific. They can only be spent in those areas. So for instance, if we came on the cycle for the building improvement grant, which actually replaced the HIP program,
Yeah,
if we had additional applicants
Yeah.
and staff requested to pull money from reserves and align more in there, that's something
Right.
that we could propose because there is a reserve balance. Same with projects as well.
but I understand these applications cannot be submitted until next year, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
It'd have to be in the next cycle because the current cycle's closed
Yeah.
this fiscal year.
And I
Okay.
think there was only one that was submitted during the first cycle.
Yeah, I believe you said two, but one was too late with
So we
submitting.
got 2 times a year to do it.
Oh, 2 times a year?
Either 2 different cycles. So
Two
the first, you missed the first cycle, you still got the next cycle, which comes up.
Can you tell me
Where they can get with, you can,
Yeah,
they
can you
can give
give me
you all
the
the dates
details
and
later?
information.
Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. We
Thanks.
can get all that to you.
Thanks.
Any other questions? At some point, you're gonna have to fill one out for me, Ms. Roach. Just give your name and address for the record.
Cheryl Roach, 312 Dodge Street.
Yes, ma'am.
What you just said pertaining to the capital possibly going into the new program that replaced the HIP.
You've got allocated funding, the way it's set up right now, just like what we talked about the last meeting, you've got amounts that are set. Those are amounts that will be budgeted. There can always be a request to take a reserve amounts in reserve and move them no differently than what's been done historically.
Okay, in the last meeting, it was stated that there were quite a few applications from both the South and the business. So will that be addressed at the Monday meeting for the distribution? I mean, if there are more applications than the 50,000, or you just don't know at this point?
I mean, it's not, I mean, at the end of the day, nobody's entitled to get funded.
I do
we-
understand that, but if the application is qualified and if there is the possible funding there, wouldn't it go ahead and be allocated?
Well, it's gonna be allocated based on what's budgeted.
Okay,
If there's a situation where it's determined that there's a need to place additional money in the budget for it, then you go from there. The reality of it is, it's kind of like, it's almost like a lottery to an extent. You go in, you apply, you qualify, you get ranked, you get funded.
Mhm.
And there's X amount of dollars in the pot per year. If we take all the money out the pot and just spend it on homes, then you're gonna put yourself in a position where you're not gonna have anything to do other capital improvements. Let's just say a great opportunity came up in the future and you don't have anything in reserves. That's something that could truly benefit everybody at one fell swoop, as opposed to dealing with a lot of the things that, for the most part, you look at a lot of these projects, they're deferred maintenance projects. So it's people wanting to paint houses or replace wood or do other things that, I mean, that can be done through some type of maintenance plan on your house, no different than what people do on their other properties who aren't inside CRA districts. But like, for example, the road paving or the crosswalks, to do the brick crosswalks or to go in and redo all the streets in the community. If you hadn't built up a strong enough reserve at that point, you wouldn't have that. That was something that benefited everybody in the community. Or even looking at the infrastructure aspect of it, being able to go in and put in the new water, sewer, and wastewater, all the other stuff that was in there, the drainage. So it's always good to have some money left in the pot so that you can build up for the future. I mean, I think historically, the certain districts have just been spoiled. At the end of the day, you look at it, we spent almost $1 million in TIF HIP programs. And so, and I think people get the idea that you're just entitled to be able to get some free money to go in and do whatever. when your tax rate is the same as the tax rate for the guy that lives 2 blocks outside of your district, who has a house that was built in the 1800s as well. And he's not gonna get any help for what he's doing. And he pays the same 6.4 mils that you pay. He pays the same non-ad valorem assessments that are paid there. And yet, I mean, and it's the CRA was built for a purpose. And what we're seeing is the benefits of some of the programming, and we're seeing the benefits of some great owners in areas like the South Historic District, where property values have started to rise and the homes are starting to look better. But at the end of the day, my personal opinion as one member of this agency is that we don't want to dump all the money into just tip hip. Because if you dump all your reserves into tip hip, you're going to find yourself in a situation where there's a repair or there's something that needs to be done in that district and there's nothing in the pot to go to. And that's what we don't want. What we want to do is to be able to say, hey, we've been able to be, really strong with the money and have a real plan to build reserves. Now we can go look at doing something magnificent in the area, whatever that may be. And that's why there's input on a regular basis from the neighborhood associations to really be able to come in and say, hey, this is on our wish list. This is what we want to see. And you're able to do a lot of that stuff. So that's just the thought.
Okay, I'm sorry, I
Go ahead.
certainly didn't want you to talk so long, but that wasn't my
Just
intention. The one comment I would like to make is that there is a difference in allocation between the South and the North, but the budget is still exactly the same. So I think moving forward to the possibility of considering the funding and the variance and maybe allocating more for the South. And I'm not trying to sound spoiled. For the record, I have never,
No.
and I will not. I am understanding of deferred maintenance, and I don't want to take advantage of the problem, but I did submit a list of some severely blighted homes to Sunny in the South District, because I do feel that there is a general consensus in the city and on the commission that we don't have blight in our neighborhood and that we are spoiled. And you basically just said that.
No, that's not what I said. And I don't need
Okay.
you, y'all need you to tell me what I said.
Okay.
No, I definitely think there's blight in your neighborhood. I've rode through your neighborhoods and seen some blighted homes. I don't think everybody participates. And I think that there's a cutoff line on perception as to what the neighborhood is compared to what the CRA district is. And those are two different things. And so I'd love to see more participation from some of the streets that have not historically participated, or some of the residents who may need some additional help who haven't necessarily gotten it. Just a lot of houses in general.
Well, I'm sorry.
They could look better.
Maybe we need to allocate some small funding for a campaign that's very localized and specialized to get the awareness out to people that may not even know that it is available for them. It is a program that has been in place for many years. It certainly is. Nobody in the neighborhoods is at fault in one way or the other for.
But that's where we got to, that's where we have to change. This isn't a program that's been in place for many years.
Yeah.
What we've done is created a new program.
Okay.
And because it's a new
They're
program,
revised, yeah.
the only thing I would ask you is, because we just, in essence, consolidated some of those programs and created new criteria, let's use this year as a test run
Okay.
for what we've got in place to see.
Okay.
Because the
That's-
one thing
no,
we
that's
can
fair.
always do is adjust.
No, I agree, and I appreciate the conversation, and I hope you
No,
feel better, and I'm very
changed,
sorry.
it's your fault. We changed the criteria. And the.
It was
and-
abuse.
And the scoring. And there was some abuse. I think if we're all honest about it, there was
Yeah.
some abuse. Well, then one reason the criteria changed. And so that we could start to have a universal scoring method that worked all across the board. And it gave people an opportunity to apply. And so what I see is, let's look at it and see if it works. What are the flaws? How can we make it better? What were there? Now we can measure true benefits, because when we measure dollars for dollar on the 840,000 that have been spent over those years, there wasn't a true benefit from the standpoint of going in and saying, hey, this property got 40 grand and its taxable value went up dollar for dollar, or, you know, the return wasn't the same. If you just looked at taxable value, aesthetics, yes, and there's some intangibles that are there that you could never measure by looking at a tax bill. But let's just look at it and see if it works this time. It's all brand new. The process is brand new. So let's just work through it. The great part about it is if we get to the middle of the year and figure, hey, it's working wonderful, we can always adjust. We just can't, you know, you can adjust up. It's hard to adjust down without there being some other issues.
That's very fair. Thank you so much. I appreciate the time.
That's just me talking. I'm one person. Anybody else kind of come in?
I mean, that's something. There's nothing more to say on from my end.
All right, Mr. Wetlick, you're gonna fill one of those cards out for me before you leave, right? All right, come on. Thanks, Ms. Roach.
Annie Swetlick, 511 North 3rd Street, Palatka. You said, Mr. Mayor, that the criteria has changed, but have the boundaries changed?
The boundaries of the district?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, and that is so unfortunate in a way, because where I live, 511 North 3rd Street, first, second, third, fourth, they are all good streets, but beyond there is a lot of blight, and a lot of people could be really being helped there. It would be fantastic if the funding for a change would go there, you know. The difference is just too obvious between the people in the historic district and the people that live outside the district. So can we change those boundaries?
Yes, that's something we've discussed. As we've discussed, changing expanding boundaries, as well as adding a new district. And so those are all things that are on the CRA plan as well. We've talked about adding in the depot district, looking at the areas between, and then trying to find a way to fill in those areas from 5th to 14th Street. Because I mean, on the north side, it's really simple. You know, the only thing that changes outside of the signage as you go north is the signs. You know, the signs change, and then the way the people look change. And so there's a distinct difference. You know, there were some of the red lines, some lines of demarcation that were very simple, that were in place during those times. So, you know, the character of the houses never changed, just to look at the people. And so there's some folks who could benefit from it. I think we could all benefit from additional information and education on the program. Ms. Roach is absolutely right that we're gonna, and staff is prepared to send out additional information on the new program so that people can be educated on both the process and what the rules are. But again, it's new. So we're working bugs out.
Okay.
And so we just had the first run, and we're trying to make some more happen. But I definitely appreciate both of you guys for caring about the community and bringing those suggestions forward.
Okay, thank you.
Come on up. Hey, you said really quietly the first meeting.
Bernard Meehan, 815 Laurel Street.
Yes, sir.
Now, I understand that I border on the South Historic District and the Central Business District. Now we're talking boundaries. Can somebody explain to me why that is? And if we are to look at changing boundaries, when would that take place?
So because you're on 8th and Laurel, are you on the south side? Are you in CB? Are you in Central Business, or are you on South Historic?
I'm in Central Business, according to. I'm directly across from third base at Rotary Park.
Yeah, I know where you are.
You know exactly where I'm at. You know who I'm next to. So we won't go there.
That's a conversation. So let's just say that's a longer conversation. But again, I think it's no different than on the north, in the North District. The line goes down the middle of Madison Street in some places. And so there was people could opt in, some people didn't. And then there were some places where I think, people were kind of just drawn in. And so there's some conversation about your street in particular, because you're right there in a business district, you're near a business district, and you're locked into some of the business rules as opposed to residential rules. And so we're having those conversations, but I will be glad to have those conversations with you. It's gonna be longer than this meeting.
No, that's fine.
But yeah,
I've never understood. and I've only been here 2 years.
don't worry, I'm still trying to understand it.
It's just curiosity killed a cat. That's the only
I
thing.
am. What happened? When they drew the districts up, they created divider lines from a population standpoint, trying to make those districts kind of even
So
throughout.
a little gerrymandering, you want to say?
Well, let's just call it redistricting.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? If not, it looks like we are looks like we're in a pretty good place here. Mr. Holmes, before I go to the agency as a whole, any comments?
No, I'm good.
Council? I've got
No,
Ms.
sir.
Tucker here. Anything? I'll go to the agency. Do we have any questions from the agency as a whole? Commissioner Rawls,
I'm good.
Commissioner McCaskill, I heard you no. Commissioner Borum,
Good.
Commissioner Campbell.
I'm good, thank you.
I've got nothing else. Thank you, Ms. Shank. Great job. We'll be bringing this back around September-ish for to finalize it, but it looks like we've got a document that's in place. And so let's try to move forward from there. Continually moving the vision. I think a critical piece of it is input, and it's input from citizens coming forward so that we can get an idea and have varying views. Because we don't have all the answers, but we want to see more things to come, and not stifle anything from coming. And so again, thank you to everybody. If there's nothing else at this point, Commissioner.
Well, I shouldn't pass that, but I think that was a good idea about the lines in terms of how expanding, because we did talk about expansion at one point. So I think we want to at least get the agency to start looking at expanding, and I don't know how it should, just it can't do nothing but help in terms of removing blight for sure, like stated earlier. So
Yeah, and I think part of it is being able to,
PMPs.
you look at where we were, I think the St. John's Avenue projects, what we were doing from an infrastructure standpoint, as those conversations came up, and then the pandemic hit. And I think, so when you put all that stuff together, that conversation changed as SM&E came on board. And so we were waiting to get the CRA plan adopted. That happened a few months ago. And so we're in a position moving forward where we can come back and start to address those things with the new CRA administrators. And so I think that puts us right where we need to be. So we appreciate everybody. It's 3:48. We'll take a break until 4 o'clock for our next meeting.
I'll see everybody later.
Sunny, who's handling this one? Sunny or you, Sunshine?
I'm here, Mr. Holmes.
That.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and call this meeting to order. The City of Palatka's second budget workshop for fiscal year 22-23. Roll call, please.
Thank you. Mayor Terrell Hill,
Here.
Commissioner Tammy McCaskill,
Here.
Commissioner Rufus Borum,
Present.
Commissioner Justin Campbell,
Present.
Commissioner Will Jones.
Absolutely.
We have a quorum, sir.
We have a quorum present. Moving forward to public comments. Public comments will be limited to 2 minutes. No action will be taken on topics of discussion. Is there anyone here for public comment? Hearing no one for public comment. We'll close public comment, move on to the agenda item number 1, facilities.
Before we get started, can we talk about the third workshop? It's on that agenda.
Okay.
So I'm requesting a third workshop in August for enterprise and special revenue funds. And then additionally, if we don't get through today's agenda, we can add those on there as well.
Okay.
That's airport, better place, sanitation, utility, golf, and ARPA. Sorry. ARPA's not on there, but.
All right, can we can do that in like the last week in August. I think it'll be good. We got until September 30th. It'll be right around the time that we start doing our millage and everything else.
So first up on here,
The
we
10th.
have. Sorry.
So FLC is the week of the 10th. So we'll be
Yes, correct, the 10th to the 14th.
right. So let's give a break in between and then let's try to do it that last week. That'll give us time to get back and get adjusted. Go ahead.
So I went ahead and redid the decision unit log and just marked the ones that were approved. And if I missed any, please let me know. But my note said the Jenkins Gymnasium, that is the grant match for the 190,000. The PIO Marketing Media Manager, 55,000. I do want to note that that does not include benefits. That is salary only at 55,000. And the Assistant City Manager, 100,000 as well. That's not including benefits. And then also the Planning and Zoning Comp Plan update, which was estimated at 75,000 for the consultant. So as of right now, we have 420,000 approved in decision units. Any questions on these? And we'll go over them more in detail. So for instance, community affairs, when we do their budget, we can go over their decision unit so that Mr. Cartwright can answer any of your questions.
So why don't we add the?
I need to add the benefits. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I will. I'll update that.
It'd be basically like 40, probably 40% normally, right? Benefits will run about like 40%.
It's about
The
anywhere
salary.
like 20 to 30,000
Yeah.
in benefits. Mhm. All right, we can move on to facilities.
And just on where it says Willie Cooper, it's Willard Cooper.
Oh, did I spell it wrong? I'm
Yeah,
sorry. I'll
ARD.
fix that.
It's WILLARD.
All right, so facilities. In facilities, we have the operations manager, which is a vacant position. And then also the facility supervisor and one laborer. The salaries, or sorry, the personnel services are all budgeted at a 5% increase. So you'll see that reflected in the increases. That's not right. I think this one's messed up on the cell too. On the 1,200 regular salaries line. It's not an increase of 108,000. I'll have to go back and check that one again. I apologize. It's the same thing that happened with the commission budget, I believe. Yeah. It's basically doubling them, so the cell is off. I apologize, I didn't catch that. But there only are 3 positions in that department. As far as the operating expenses, really, they stayed flat. There was only an increase of $450 for the department total. And what we're trying to do in the facilities maintenance budget is really have facility repairs run through this department, as well as give them an operating budget to where, you know, they're not constantly waiting on other departments to put in for parts and things like that. So they have a budget for small tools and repairs. So we built that in this fiscal year and budget in this current budget, and it's worked very well for Justin. So just continuing that. Do you have any questions about facilities? Easy one.
No, you can move forward.
So we can move on to cemetery. As you know, cemetery is, it's not a special revenue fund, but it does have special revenue that comes into it. And based on the current year, we took a look at what we needed to assess as far as the mowing contracts, the on-call, safe touch, communication services. This one stayed relatively flat except for a few areas. We did increase the communication services based on the current budget. If you look at actual 21, it was about $2,300. So we needed to increase that next year for the actual expenses.
Are those restrooms still in disrepair? At the cemeteries?
Mr. Griffith?
Also talk about if he
what we discussed about possibly using that facility out there as office space so that we can have a person on site to help, you know, families when they come out. We did also talk about possibly using, I guess we have a slab out there that we can use for like to get covered, and we can use to have, you know, services on site at the graveside services, and folks can have covering for weatherization purposes.
Yeah, I have seen requisitions coming through this fiscal year. I know that Amanda and Justin were working on kind of making the facility usable so that they could meet with the funeral directors and families. As far as I last heard, they were trying to coordinate potentially having Amanda go out there on specific days to meet with families and the funeral directors.
Yes.
I'm not sure on the status of that. That's something I'd have to defer to Jonathan about.
Well, I was scheduled to meet with Amanda yesterday, and obviously that didn't happen because she's not available.
Okay.
But I was scheduled to meet with her to sort of sort all those things out, but it couldn't happen.
Okay. So just want to make sure that it is in the works, and I know that council is on that committee, so.
I'll just go ahead and mention that one of the things that has been looked at is our rates.
Definitely compared to neighboring
Correct.
cities.
So
We're behind,
we're way behind.
way behind, yes.
She has been doing a good job of collecting some arrearages. I apologize. She has been doing a great job of collecting some arrearages, outstanding accounts that hadn't been paid in quite a while. I think she's got in excess of $23,000 in past fees that were owed from some of the funeral homes and services. But we were trying to look at sustainability but as I said, we, because of circumstances, couldn't meet yesterday.
Right. No, I think there was a cemetery task force that was put in place with some of the directors. And so it actually worked pretty good as far as getting feedback in the past. It may be an opportunity to have the conversation with them and start to talk to them about, about rate adjustment, some of the other things, and see if there's some other places. But I think in looking at it, I think Commissioner kind of hit it on the head. The buildings unmanned, you've got restroom facilities that, to my last knowledge, unless something changed, needed to be retiled and upgraded. There had been break-ins with homelessness and some other things that were going on out there at one point. And then, the other part is you don't really have a covered area. And you have people who come out there and sit for hours. And so it's an opportunity for us to really have a first impression on people who come in from out of town and they've got loved ones who they've lost. And at least have, a comfortable location for them as they, while they're out there. So I'd like to see something, that we put in the budget, more than the 2,000 we got in there for building maintenance.
I'll go out and look and take Jonathan with me. We'll take a look at the state of the restrooms and also the office space and try to get.
Yeah, and the other thing was they've been working on replacing fencing, and it had been done a little bit at a time. If there's an opportunity for us to get it done now. Let's just see what's there. It may be.
Do you have an idea of where you'd like a pavilion placed?
I don't think you necessarily need a pavilion because. Go ahead.
When I was speaking with Mrs. Tuberville, she said that there's like an existing block out there, slab that we can.
So, commissioners. It's an extended portion.
Mr. Griffith?
Yes, there is a pole barn structure approximately 20 feet by 30 feet that's adjacent to the old maintenance shop that's in the middle of Oak Hill East. The building itself doesn't have many redeeming qualities, could probably be demolished, but the pole barn is in pretty good shape. Right now it's got fencing around it, and there is another concrete paved area right next to it.
Yeah. And I know you worked on, you worked with some local fencing companies to start replacing fencing in the west, some of the wooden fence.
Yes, sir. We did the section that was behind some of the residences on the north and west and behind Larry's Giant Subs and the other commercial. But there is a run. There was some discussion about putting a run of fencing up on the Oak Hill East on the northern boundary. But I think there's some other consideration that needs to be given to that vegetation, and working with our partners at the county. I believe there's a small homeless encampment back there.
Right. So let's, if we can you shoot out some info, maybe on at least a 2 or 3 year plan for the cemeteries to get it, up to snuff, because I think we've been piecemealing it just based upon the fact that there was limited resources budgeted for it. But I'd love to see us put some money in the budget and at least say, hey, within this period of time, this is where we expect to be.
All right.
Yeah, and we can also tell you what has been completed too.
Right. So I think that'll be good information for the third meeting for the commission to have, and then we can come back and revisit this.
And if we can also ask Mrs. Tuberville about the markers, she was saying, getting a quote for markers so that families can say if they're on marker 33, it's easily easier to identify
Or like a
loved
director.
one's location.
Yeah, those were some efforts that her and Justin had talked about potentially doing this year while Mr. Ladd was still there. And I had just told them that my suggestion to them would be to get a list together to bring to the commission because they could pull from the special cemetery reserve, but it would have to be approved by commission. But I told them the first step was getting a real plan together. So-
Well, there's a
And I know
whole-
that was addressed on there though, was the markers.
There's a lot that needs to be addressed, right from the perspective of do we issue deeds or not? Technically, we're not issuing deeds right now. We're issuing what amounts to a right of occupancy or right of possession. But it's a little bit stilted and it's a little bit cumbersome. And that was part of what we were addressing yesterday, was whether just to present a whole program to the commission, revamping some of those things to make it a little bit simpler and also a little bit easier to organize and keep track of. So, but we'll come back with something and the 3-year plan, try to put some things together. I'll try to get a hold of a couple of the funeral directors and see if we can meet just informally.
Yeah,
2,
if
3,
we-
4 of them.
If we look at the task force minutes, then you'll see who have been participating. And I think it's a pretty common group. And I think they'll rally pretty quickly, maybe a Zoom or something.
Do we know how much, I guess in terms of what we're trying to construct out there, their estimated cost of what we're trying to construct, and we have an idea?
You may not have to build anything. That's the thing that Mr. Griffith was saying.
Right.
You already have a pavilion that exists that
Right.
just needs aesthetics.
Right.
I think more than anything, that's probably that's probably something you could turn into a nice feature just by dressing the pole barn up a little bit. And then on the other side, some of it's just, creating a more manicured and presentable area. And that's just detail work. I think it's detail work and and whatever the vision that comes out of it that would be beneficial to the people.
Need to be excused.
Go ahead. All right. Any other comments?
There's no water in the kitchen, is there?
And what?
I was asking if there's water in the kitchen, and I guess there is. Okay.
I have water in my office.
Anything?
All right, moving on to streets department. This fiscal year, we did hire and 2 part-time DOC work crew supervisors. We did move them to full-time, so you will see that change in the salaries. And then also the 5% increase. And what I did with this department is I basically went through and just line by line looked at where they're at currently versus historically and made adjustments as necessary. And
Just somewhere, I think we may not even need to put anything in there, but one of the things we talked about when we brought the street crews back was having, the guys that were on the prison work crew, bringing them in for permanent, looking at bringing them in for permanent hire. We've had one person already identified. He's already been released. And as a potential employee, and it's just a matter of making contact with him again. But there were a couple guys that have basically kind of been watched and vetted through the program by the DLC, the retired DLC officers who were working the work crews for us. And so, the plan is for the upcoming fiscal year to have a criteria program with some details presented to the commission so that we can look at, opportunities of hiring jobs, bringing jobs in for the guys who've been working on the crews. And they've really done a good job of screening people.
They have.
very good. In the capital, I do have another replacement for the zero turn mowers. This year we did buy one, so I'm just slotting again for next year to buy an additional. And uniform cost did go up a little bit. That's because we, added 2 full-time employees, so that went up $500. And then we also added more money into the paving materials line in your operating. Sorry, I'm on the next page, so I'm trying. And so for as a whole, this department did increase by $112,245. With a majority of it being, of course, in salaries. Any questions about this department?
This is a good 112,000. It's literally got us to a point where the city looks better. The right of ways coming into the community look a whole lot better. And I think long-term it's going to give us an opportunity to give a second chance to some folks.
I think the next step for this department too is going to be looking at stormwater and really doing true assessments on our stormwater needs for the city as well.
Mr. Griffith's about to talk to that about that right now.
Yeah, commissioners, I just wanted to bring it to your attention that historically, we have not funded any stormwater maintenance. It would fall underneath the purview of streets. Just the past couple of weeks, we had to move some money around to be able to repair a culvert that failed at Lee and Jackson Street in Tierra Woods. That's pretty typical. Where we don't have a dedicated funding line for these types of activities. And the other thing I'll mention is that your current staffing levels, you don't have a dedicated person to run the backup vacuum truck to wash and vacuum your storm lines to make sure that they are maintained and kept clear so that we can deal with these rain events. Just a couple of weeks ago, you probably saw some flooding based upon the amount of rain that we got one Friday afternoon. That's pretty typical of a system that's not being maintained. So these are things that we kind of wanted to bring to your attention that we really need to try and find a solution for.
Okay, that might answer the question that somebody had brought to my attention about, coming underneath the Creel underpass area, and it was another area that was flooding or whatever. This had to be rerouted. Even right there in Creole and Hudson. Right there.
Mosley.
Right there, it was bad. I took a picture of it when we had that rain event. So yes.
Well, Jonathan, I'll tell you that I guess there had been some attempt to maintain some sort of a cleanup schedule, but I guess that had kind of fallen by the wayside. So has that schedule already been re-implemented, Jonathan?
So we've had to shift some resources to get Daniel Nicholson and another laborer out on that vacuum truck. Right now, we have a vacant operator position. So Daniel's playing double duty with supervisor and running the sweeper on the state system in the arterials. But we're a little behind in that regard, Mr. Holmes. We really don't have the necessary staffing to be able to handle the maintenance of the stormwater system. When someone does the vacuuming and washing of that system, it's at the cost of not doing something else, be it right-of-way maintenance, tree trimming, sidewalk work, things of that nature.
So is a suggestion to bring on another operator?
I think that would help, Mayor. And I think that we need to look at budgeting at least a minimum some stormwater maintenance so that we can deal with things like replacing a culvert, or another example is the storm inlet that was reported last week on 7th Street. And technically, there's nothing in the budget right now to address that. We have to rob Peter to pay Paul to get it done. And we have relied heavily on grant projects to basically repair and replace essentially deferred maintenance, or just a system that is aged out.
I think Peter's broke. So the question is there a recommended amount that we need to look at placing in stormwater budget? So to deal with repairs?
What's realistic, Jonathan, on just the repairs, not counting the salary position?
So a repair is going to run you somewhere in the ballpark of $2 to $6 grand, depending on what you're doing, be it an inlet top or replacing an inlet or a culvert. Just based upon our experience past year, I'd say if you put 50 to 75,000 in there, that'd be a good start. The other thing that I would suggest is we've been looking and haven't been able to find anybody to fund it, but we need to do exactly what we did with the utility, which is a fiscal sustainability plan where they identify all our assets, the remaining service life, and they tell you exactly to the cent what you need to budget every year for a depreciation or capital replacement. And that'd be a good start. And what Lauren or Ms. Shanks suggested earlier, I believe if you did put a stormwater utility assessment in place, that's one of the first eligible expenses.
So what about logically, where would we be with a 50,000 placeholder there?
Yeah, I second that. That it's something that need to be done. We don't need to wait till the event happen and then we have vehicles and other things becoming in distress, causing emergency situations and stuff like that and safety hazards. So
And let's see if we can shift some other lines around to get to that.
So 50 for maintenance, and then also can we budget an operator? Let's go ahead and put a budget in, even if it's a decision unit, put a budget, an operator in there.
And I think it'll be an offset between an operator and another staff person. And then we can figure out where Paul is gonna get the rest of this money from, since Peter's gonna be screaming.
Right, moving on to parks. This department has. I think this is an updated sheet, I'm sorry. Jonathan, correct me, it had 3 positions in here, right?
Hey, you should have the supervisor and then 2 laborers.
Yeah. I don't know if my file got corrupted, but yes, there's 3 positions in here, so the top portion is not reflective of how many people are in this department. But nonetheless, the operating did not change. We just kind of shifted duties around with the personnel. So between parks and streets, we saw that there was a need to readjust who was in what department based on what they're currently doing. So one of the DOC work squad supervisors is actually in the parks department. So I apologize. I'll make sure that we get that fixed. Notable changes, we this year actually took the money that we had for the department correction prison group, and we moved that to contract mowing. So you'll see that increase in the top line in your professional services. And then just going through the budgets and looking at actual expenses, prior year expenses. One thing I did add was I know that the commission has expressed that they wanted to do some repairs at Hank Bryan Park. So I did add $4,000 to that in order to upgrade some of that playground equipment.
That won't do a lot.
But that's, I truly think that's something that maybe we can add to our list to maybe look at our parks and see if we need to replace swings or, you know, get a true 2 to 3 year plan on the equipment.
That part. Hank Bryan.
I know the commission's also expressed interest in putting a bathroom there.
Yeah.
So,
We talked about that as being an ARPA expense. So I think it's necessary. It was necessary 35 years ago.
so we will add
Yeah,
that
you
to
came
our
close.
list.
It's been there for at least well before 92. So I can tell you, it's been there since Commissioner Borum had a hot top phase.
Oh, okay. Mayor had to swoop.
So it's I think we're at that time. We've been looking at ways to get it done through Paul, and the numbers are just everything's unreal right now. But trying to get that done and working that piece out. And I think, those are the things we got to look at. That playground really doesn't exist anymore.
What?
The playground there was, so on 10th and Olive,
There's nothing in there.
it was, so on 10th on the corner of 10th and Olive, no, near the old Calvary Church, there was a playground there, which when we came in 2015, it was believed that was city property. When further research was done, it was privately owned, had never been conveyed to the city, but the swing sets and the playground was there, but that property was never conveyed to the city. And so once all that was corrected, that park no longer existed, the little pocket park.
But it got something like what it had like some.
It had a swing and it had the little mini merry-go-round thing. Yeah.
That one on private property, more than likely.
Well, it was, the intent was for it to be donated to the city as a park, but it was never done.
Okay. So now it's a private.
It's privately owned. There's actually an owner who's looking to build houses there.
So much for that part there.
So it hasn't been operating or maintained in a number of years. And while we're there, we're looking at that list on Edgemore and Hudson. That's some additional property that once was a problem piece of property with folks coming in there and dealing in illegal activities. And it was a gathering place. It's remained empty for a long period of time. And maybe something we look at for infill, right? And then we've got the other park, you got the other little park that's not really used over on River and 12th.
Yeah.
You've got the community farm, you got the community garden across the street,
Right.
but the park itself hasn't really been, that equipment is ancient and it hasn't been maintained in quite a while.
I do see people there from time to time. I mean, I don't see why they're there, but they are over there using the little stuff that's there. So we just have to make some kind of decision whether we want to improve it or not and move forward. Yeah, we're either gonna make it out of a park or just do something different with it.
Right. And so for a while, we used spread out funding to upgrade the parks, including Hank Bryan with the fencing, Booker. Used spread out a few times. You also have to look at Shawbuck is another one where you've got the old tennis courts need to be resurfaced. And the lighting we had started as a part of what we did, we put poles in place with the lighting there. And that old tennis court and the resurfacing of the basketball court were something that we wanted to do. I think I'd like to see us put, another 10,000 in for Shawbuck to redo the basketball court. We can probably, and see if we can get that. And because those kids use that basketball court. And that's the only, I think that's the only court, outdoor court we've got that hasn't been restored. Yeah,
Will 10,000 do it?
it used to be about $10,000 to redo the courts. 15?
Let's put 15, let's put 15 in there at least to kind of get it to where it need to be, and because it certainly need maintenance. A refresher for sure. And it's utilized a lot.
And then we'll come back with updates on the other parks. And
Yeah.
Ms. Val wants at least one pickleball court put in the budget.
Well, the opportunity for the pickleball, for at least one pickleball court exists there, and it exists at Hank Bryant. Those are the two places, and I think those are the opportunities. Those are things that can probably be covered with ARPA, pretty easily. But you've got a pretty solid tennis. Both of those courts are pretty solid just for lining and surfacing, and so you can bring those numbers back on that. It'll be something we can look at, and then that's just a matter, I think, of adjusting where some of those lines are.
next up, we have police, and it is 506. You want to keep?
Yeah, he won't take long. He's got plenty of money already.
Can we transfer some? Can you?
Hey, they arrested. They had 2 big arrests last month.
One thing I do want to point out that I found through working through the positions was that we do actually have the funding for the animal control officer. So I was wrong on that. That was a position that was listed in there, and it did have the funding.
I didn't never thought it went away. I didn't never think
It was still in there, but I thought that I didn't slot the funding for it, and I did. It's actually in that 1,300 other salaries and wages.
Yeah.
As your animal control officer.
We got everything but somewhere to put the animals.
And that is.
Yeah, I did actually have some conversations with them, and so recently, so maybe we'll be able to make some headway there.
We'll see it 2 years after your retirement.
Probably.
Yeah, the way it's going, because they're still talking about the design of the building.
Right.
And so, so you're talking about final design of the building. They've got a schematic, what that's gonna look like, engineering, architecture, all those things. And then just a matter of coming out the money. So.
Well, I'm gonna try to reach out to, I already have Safe Pet Rescue to see if they might be willing to take a limited number of animals in exchange for a contribution of some sort, to give us some sort of interim capacity, because as the chief will tell you, it's becoming a problem that's not going to be one that we can ignore for a lot longer, and we're going to have to address it.
Yeah, it's bad now. They just, I mean, that's just with stray dogs, not counting cats or and everything else, or chickens, or now peacocks.
Peacocks.
So we're becoming Green Acres. So it's something's got to give.
So we can move on to police operating if y'all have any questions. Once again, slotted the 5% in all positions across the board. One thing I do want to note, we did add in the professional services. We got a quote for the Verizon fleet, which is the GPS on the cars, and that is added in. That was about 9 or 10,000. Yeah.
Professional services.
Correct, yeah.
What,
Increase on fuel, of course. I will not make that mistake again, I promise.
gotta go back, four
So
cylinders.
based on current consumption and where we're at, we took that up to 150,000 in fuel. So it does look like a significant increase in their operating, but it's really not because it was under budgeted on that.
Time to pull out the bike unit again.
Huh?
Put Toby back on the Harley.
Hey, you know, I think that would be something that we might want to consider too, you know, with the bike, with the cops on the bike, remember that they had that program? Okay. You're down a few, okay. That'll work.
What is the rentals and leases?
Copiers.
Equipment.
I didn't itemize that one out.
Okay, I got you.
Culligan water.
So you don't drink
things
city
like
water?
that. I'm quoting chief.
I got Culligan one, got City one.
So, no, go ahead. Do we still have your recruitment program funding? Is that still in there?
Yes, we have $20,000.
Are we seeing, has there been an increase in school?
For
Schooling for the academy?
No, sir. The cost for the academy, no, sir.
Sunny's gonna get you.
Oh. No.
She's there. She's right there.
For the record.
Okay.
In that women's self-defense course that you all offered at one point, what was the cost for that?
The cost to the citizen was, I think, about $30. The staffing was done and supplied by us, so it was free staffing, the overtime for the staffing. Some of our defensive tactics trainers actually went in and provided that as a service, as well as the self-defense class or the weapons class that Captain Newcomb provided. It was similar to that as well. So what the money that was taken from it would basically help buy the equipment to continue on, the mats used for it, and the whatever other small materials that stuff like that to provide for it. And then the weapons class, I forget, but it's similar, same thing. Stuff that went to the range to help upkeep for the range and stuff like that.
On to the capital outlay. The CIP expenses, there is a separate, and you'll see as backup item to match that number of 108,500 that is itemized out. And you'll see that in this graph that's in your packet. The items within there are traffic regulation speed trailers, which there's 2 of those. Tasers, each year we upgrade and replace 8 tasers. We have 32 total. So you'll see that every year we upgrade those. And then we also budgeted for a modular training facility at the gun range. And then also replacing the radar laser units, which there's 15 of those total, and we replace 2 each. 2 a year.
What'd you do about the conversation about tag readers? No, that's it.
Tag readers.
What, am I missing something with the 60,000 in the last, for the radar like we doing?
This, hold on. Oh. This is for
I'm missing something.
No, we're on the capital outlay.
But I thought you just went through that.
Did they?
Yes.
So why am I missing something?
Should I be in?
60,000 then? It's for year 2023, all the way
For 26, 27. I think, yeah, I think 26, 27. I think that's misprint. We're not gonna look at that.
Oh,
I don't think that should be, I agree, 60,000.
Can you pull that screen up?
Yeah.
It's in fiscal year 26, 27. It's the only thing in that column. It's outlined outside of what was initially the 5-year plan. It's the only thing, and it's set aside for replacement radar laser units.
oh, that's a typo. It should be 6,000, not 60.
Chief, at one point, there was talk about a range, law enforcement range that would basically be perhaps funded by or built in conjunction with college.
Yes, sir. That talks from that has, when we went through with COVID, has stalled quite a bit. The modular unit that she's referring to is still moving in the direction that we need for the training facilities and the upgrades to the range that we would have. The question on if the college reaches the point to where they're wanting to come over and use it on a regular basis for the academy training and firearms training, I guess we'll be revisiting it when they're ready to reapproach.
Water.
No, I'm good. I'm good. So with the tag readers, was that it? Do you have that anywhere in your?
We had it in for this year. We talked about looking at upgrading, and I've already talked to the housing authority, and the housing authority is going to look at several sites on their property. So we haven't revisited, went away from it for this year. We are looking at it into it for this year to go along with the project that the sheriff's office are putting out, so we can be on all the same system.
So we're gonna see about having multiple, right?
That's correct. Yes, sir.
So that would be in this year, not next year. So you won't see it on the CIP because it's this year.
No, it wouldn't be on the CIP, but I was trying to make sure that was something that was included in the, in our funding opportunities.
We are looking at the planning, and we are reaching out to those partners that we all discussed where it would be beneficial.
Okay. And has it been traction there?
Yes, sir, very much.
Okay, good.
And that's something we would add on here. So as we get these assets, we do the life cycle.
Oh, good, great.
And that's it for PD.
All right, this is a good stopping point for us. So we'll save fire for next time. And no,
Sorry, Eddie.
we'll see you back here again, same bat channel. So bring Peter and Paul with you. Peter may be in trouble by then. No more Robin Hood. So it's a good stopping point for us. I think it what were you looking at? A pure balance on this for the whole budget, or were you looking at any pushing reserves?
For ongoing expenses, balanced. For some one-time expenses, we may dip into the reserves, but it depends on what we can accomplish this year. Moving some potential facility repairs to ARPA, or sorry, moving the 800 megahertz radios to ARPA, and then using that reserve to do some facility repairs this year.
All right, well, let's see if we can minimize the dip or to zero. So any closing comments as we get ready to pull out?
No, we just want to thank you for coming in and doing your duty while you were under the weather, Mayor. So we appreciate that.
We commend you this time.
I'll take it this time.
Give him a Purple Heart.
So again, good job to staff. I think good conversations today, moving forward. The thing I like most about it is the fact that we're not just looking at next year, we're looking into the future long term. and resolving a lot of the issues of the one-person departments and also the areas that have been uncharted. So let's just keep moving forward. Everybody stay safe.
Including you.
And I'm going to sit down. So go from there. And again, thank you, Mr. Griffith, as well.
No conclave for you.
Ms. Jones, Ms. Krantz, Ms. Walsh. Y'all been quiet today. So again, thanks, everybody. Have a good day. We stand adjourned.